Hello, and welcome to a presentation by the Federation for Children with Special Needs. Today, I'll be talking about skills for serving on groups, which is part of our CPAC Summer School Series for 2022. If you're new to the Federation, we are a nonprofit organization providing information, support, and assistance to families, parents of children with disabilities, their professional partners, educators, all of your community. And we're really committed to listening and learning from you. So welcome, and I'm glad you could join us. So today's learning objectives are hoping that you'll identify some of your strengths that you could bring to a group, develop some skills so that you can not only participate in meetings, but ultimately maybe help facilitate a meeting. We hope that part of this conversation today will be about resolving and recognizing conflict, because conflict happens when you get a group of people together, often with differing opinions. And maybe we'll use some of these problem-solving techniques to help your group move forward, because it's all about building that consensus, because that's where we get the most buy-in and commitment from group members when decisions are made. When we met the other evening, I asked the group to identify strengths, because I wanted everyone to realize that you can start being involved with a group with really no specific skills, because you already have those skills. You have a lot of strengths. You have your experience and your unique perspective. And that's what's so valuable to participating in a group. And some of the strengths that the group shared during the evening was organizational skills, critical thinking, empathy, the importance of making it fun, why groups are so dynamic and they need to meet the needs of lots of different people, note-taking, being a proofreader, just showing up, that, commitment and dedication to the group's mission. Creating dialogue and conversation and encouraging conversation, how important that is to a group having a robust discussion, bringing that positive attitude and helping to tailor communication to fit the needs of the groups. These are just some of the strengths that were identified that people bring to a group, and I'm sure you have a lot of strengths, even though you may not have a prior experience working with a group. The concept here is to encourage you to start to get involved, to build those skills along the way, and then hopefully mentor others or to lead a group and demonstrate that this is possible, and the importance of the parent voice at the table. So I'm going to talk about some of the skills that you might develop to participate in a group. So first of all, skills to help you prepare for a meeting. I hope that everyone starts to keep a calendar, not only to record the dates and times of meetings, but to kind of understand that things happen in progression and that you need to plan in advance. If there is an agenda for the meeting, read the agenda, go through it, and become familiar with what will be discussed at the meeting. If there are any meeting minutes from the prior meeting or meetings that you have not had a chance to review, especially if you did not attend the prior meeting, to read the prior minutes. Those will be voted on and accepted at the meeting, and so that you want to be able to familiarize yourself with what happened, but also ask any questions about notes that are in those minutes. We always encourage you to write down any questions that you have or comments. It's a busy world, and the more that you can kind of just keep notes for yourself is a good idea, so that you're ready for that meeting. There might be an issue or a topic that you don't have a great background in, and so that to build an understanding of that topic, you may want to do some research in advance. And I always suggest that you talk to others, ask others for information about that topic, their understanding, their knowledge about that topic, to kind of get yourself ready to participate in a meeting that a topic is going to be discussed. So the best practice is really to be prepared, to be ready to be a participant in the meeting. Even if you, don't speak on the topic, you're ready to give input at any given time when asked about agenda items and issues that are coming before that group. When you're at a meeting, skills to help you participate actually in the meeting, we recommend that you attend every meeting if possible. Regular attendance builds, knowledge of the group's function, and it also allows you to have regular input into issues that are coming before the group. If you are going to be absent, please notify the leader. That helps them understand who will be attending, who they might have to share materials with, and that way they won't be waiting for you to arrive. And so that's great policy. By going to meetings on a regular basis, you're going to start to build relationships with other group members. And this is key because you kind of see where people are falling out, where people are coming down on decisions, and you can make alliances, you can understand some of the dynamics of the group, and relationship building is where we all are, we need time, and by attending meetings, you'll start to build those relationships. Another good suggestion is to take your own notes. There will be usually a secretary or someone will be taking minutes, formal minutes of the meeting, but taking your own notes, especially where you need to identify any action items that you have agreed to champion or to do for the next meeting. You'll have your own notes and your own kind of setup of how that's going to work for you outside of the formal meeting minutes. Part of being in a group is to ask questions because you're learning the lingo of the group. In special education, we have a lot of acronyms. And so it's good to understand, really what the group is talking about, ask questions when you don't understand, especially if there's a word or an acronym that you are not familiar with. That's clarifying information, asking. And those are all ways that make you a successful group member, is that you're driving a clear understanding of the information that is being discussed. After a meeting, there's things that you can do to follow up to keep you actively involved in the group, even though you're not meeting. Review your own notes to make sure that you are following up on any action items that you said you would champion. If the meeting minutes become available in between as a draft, review them and be ready to give input at the next meeting when they are voted on. If there are any materials that were indicated in those minutes or in the meeting, that would be a good background, a good resource. You want to read those materials and get ready to be prepared to discuss any meetings that have been referenced. I think one of the challenges for somebody new to a group is to realize how much data there is out there that will inform the group, that will guide the group, and that the group might even be driving, generating data for another board or an advisory group. So you need to learn how to understand data and work with data. Data is not my strength, so it's always like something I have to work on and just formally kind of get myself set to address data that's coming through, whether it be numerical data or even story data, analytical, different types of data. And if you had agreed to do a task, try to complete it before the next meeting, or at least inform the leader of your status, where you are at in completing that task. I think the key here is to kind of stay organized as you go along in participating in a group from meeting to meeting. There's things you need to do outside of the meeting to keep yourself on task. If you're thinking of maybe moving into facilitating or leading a meeting, either on a regular basis or just even stepping in for somebody. There are some common strategies to help the group be more successful. And one of the things that you can do is to make everyone feel comfortable and valued. They're giving up their time to participate in this group, so that you really want to, welcome them and make them feel comfortable and ready to participate. If you are leading, it's really being more of a neutral kind of facilitator. And so having neutral body language and, being a good listener and being attentive and making that eye contact or be ready to, welcome discussion, I think is a good thing. If your group hasn't done it already, is to set some of those ground rules, but do it together so that everyone has some buy-in. And it might be starting off with, we're going to put our cell phones on vibrate so we don't disturb the meeting. And what are the ways that people can be recognized to speak so that everyone's not speaking at once, and just coming up with some ground rules and establishing those or reviewing them prior to the meeting just kind of puts everybody in a good place to be a participant, equal participant in the meeting, because you're encouraging participation. Often somebody will say something that is maybe confusing, and you can always ask to clarify. You could paraphrase what they said and said, is this what you meant when you said, X, Y, and Z? Am I capturing this right? We want to make sure it's in the notes correctly, or I have a question about that. And can you help me? I don't understand what you said. I think that's a great role for a leader, to make sure that everybody's on the same page. You're really listening actively, but being a little bit flexible. You're trying to stick to that agenda. If there's great discussion going on and you realize it's going to go outside the bounds of the agenda that you had, you might ask the group to adjust the agenda, take something off the agenda if you want to continue with that discussion. If this is a new group or there's new people coming into it, you might do some team building activities to just get everyone feeling comfortable in that group. And at the end of any meeting, please thank people for coming. Most groups are volunteer positions, and we want people to feel valued and welcomed and thanked. There may be some disagreement within the group, so you can agree to disagree, but it's really done in a respectful manner, because you're really trying to welcome those different opinions and have those robust discussions. And that might lead to people disagreeing, but I think it's all done with the sense of what the mission of the group is, what your goal is, and what your decision-making process is. So a facilitator will really try to keep that meeting on track, because they're trying to value people's times, keep within a set time period, so there's expectations. I think nobody likes going to these meetings that go on and on and on, and there's no end in sight. It's hard to participate. We have busy lives. So follow the agenda. If there are any objectives under the agenda item, review those in advance so people are aware of how that's going to go. If there's any data or information that needs to be reviewed, bring that forward, make sure that other people bring it forward so it's available to everyone. That might happen outside of the meeting, could happen during the meeting. I think it's great to talk about what the decision-making process will be on any item on the agenda, whether there'll be a vote on it, or will it be some kind of consensus before an item is moved forward or decided upon. And having that set up in advance is a good practice, so there's the right expectations. I hope a facilitator can help the group think in terms of different interests rather than polarized positions, because you're all focused on moving that issue forward and having that, often a group is a decision-making or an advisory group, so that they have to kind of move it forward with some kind of goal or outcome. If there are any decisions, make sure they're recorded, make sure the secretary captured the correct vote if there was a vote, so that it's accurate, and you can have an accurate record of the meeting. And if there are any actions, to start to work out action plans, because having a decision made is one thing. Having it carried out and who's going to do what by when is really important, and that can also be captured in the minutes. So that action plan is important for the group to move forward and accomplish things. You as the leader are setting the tone, creating excitement about the material, and as somebody noted, the strength that they brought to a group would be also making it fun. So I think it should be enjoyable for the people who are attending. It just makes it more of a dynamic group if there's some positive tones that are set, so that people feel that they're accomplishing things. Yes, sometimes it's hard work. Sometimes there is conflict, but at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, it's nice to say, well, we got together and we moved the ball forward. There may be conflict, and so I think I want to address it first on a personal level, and then how you would deal with that as a group leader. If you are in a meeting and you're experiencing conflict, especially you're expressing an idea, just try to keep an open mind and don't take things personally. People have differing opinions. Try to stay focused on the agenda or what the group has agreed on. You can take a 5-minute break. I think that's perfectly fine, because sometimes you come back refreshed or just ready, thinking in a different mindset. And the whole group could take a 5-minute break just to kind of quiet things down and maybe talk on the side and come back together with that renewed sense of purpose of where the group is going. So just recognize that conflict may happen, and how you are going to deal with it, and where that works for you, and where you might need some assistance or help from either the group leader or another group member. I think as a leader of a group, you're going to have to identify where some of those problems are, and you probably can see it happening in the conversation within the group, but you might want to just identify it and describe what you're seeing and hearing, where there is a conflicting opinion, and kind of set the group up to kind of handle that barrier that they're experiencing before they're moving forward, but acknowledging that we have differences, and that's the strength of the group, and we're welcoming differences. So often you can ask members to restate their position, allow questions around that, so that there's some clarity as to where the differences are. And if you're really stuck, is just kind of also remind the group that, if you continue to be stuck, where are we going? We need to come to a consensus on something. And that's really the role and the purpose of the group, is to move issues forward, or find, a statement or an advisory position that you're going to take. And if you get stuck, you're not going to achieve that goal. So you have to overcome that barrier. And sometimes it's thinking outside the box. So sometimes it's just taking a break and saying, okay, let's think of this in another way. So you can kind of turn the topic upside down, reframe it, think outside the box, really just bring more creative thought to the table, especially if people are entrenched in two different positions. There also is an opportunity for sometimes to put things into a parking lot, that it's important. It's a little bit outside of the range of the decision-making process that needs to happen. And you want to value someone's opinion, someone's issue, but it just may not be the place to resolve it on that agenda during that meeting. So putting it in a parking lot or in a bike rack for any outstanding or unresolved issues, and then coming up with a plan to revisit that at another meeting, so people are more prepared maybe to address that issue. I think a parking lot is a good idea if your group is stuck, because you really need to go through like almost a formal problem solving process. And there are several different methods. In one of the resources at the end, I have an article that kind of describes problem solving in a 5-step process. And so number one is, we've talked about, is like defining the problem. What's the current situation? Where do you really want to go? And what are the obstacles in the way? So that's just putting the facts out on the table, so that everybody is probably aware that there is, a problem, but now you kind of defined it a little bit more. And now the next step is to kind of go into a little bit more of an analysis of like why, what are these potential causes of difficulty, and have discussion around those specifics, always with the eye on the end and the outcome and the goal that you have, that we need to get there as a group, but having, a discussion about that. And that's where now this brainstorming or outside of the box thinking or possible solutions or generating creative ideas. And if you're either in a person or even virtuals, some way of charting all of those solutions. So you put a flip chart up, you use a whiteboard, some other technique. In virtual, you might use a chat box. It's like, what are all the possible solutions? Let's just push them all out there and, really ask for a lot of group input on possible solutions, because you'll be surprised that, thinking outside the box might come up with new ideas and new ways of thinking, like, oh, okay, maybe we'll do it that way. People can ask questions to clarify, but you're just throwing those solutions out. Ultimately, you're going to evaluate those solutions. Which ones are, viable, credible? Can we do this? Do we have funding for that? Do we have time? Is it a complete idea, or is it need some more thought around it? And what are the effects of if we went in that, use that solution or went in that direction? There might be some outside effects. So it's really just evaluating them all, because ultimately you're going to have to make a decision. As a group, hopefully there's a little bit more buy-in and consensus by you going through this process, and you're going to make that decision. The last part of that is to implement any kind of decision or process, and then evaluate and assess, and get that feedback and say, we went in this direction, it really didn't work, so let's go back to the drawing board. And it's okay. That's okay to make not mistakes, but go in a direction that based on experience and assessment and feedback, it's not working. So you go back to the drawing board. And that's a lot of what groups do. I mean, that's how you get to the correct decision. But going through a more formal process at least helps you identify and gets more group buy-in in the beginning. Because ultimately we'd hopefully like to reach some kind of consensus. So that's defining those outcomes at the beginning, so everybody's on the same page. That's where we want to go. Now, how are we going to get there? You're going through a wide range of possible solutions, so you're hopefully getting a lot of input from the diverse opinions within your group. There's a lot of brainstorming, and I think that's where we don't spend the time to do that in a group. We're always directed on these agendas, but brainstorming might be the most interesting part, because it goes outside and brings in new ideas. Hopefully there's a consensus within the group that it's not this way or that, it's both and, using that technique of welcoming new ideas and building on them. And you're going to come to the end and hopefully have some type of an agreement, rather than doing it a vote 5 versus 4, knowing that almost half of the group did not agree with the direction that the group was taking. If you use a consensus type of strategy, you can get a higher level of commitment and satisfaction with that decision, and people are going to be more engaged in the group. It takes longer, it's messier, it might take a little bit higher level of facilitation, but I think it has greater rewards. And every group operates differently, so you'll find out how the group makes decisions and moves forward. So that's a little bit about skills around not only participating in a group or facilitating in a group. Our goal here is to get you involved in a group, to get you to start to bring your strengths, your expertise, your experience, your knowledge into groups to create better outcomes for lots of different systems. I have a lot of resources here, and this talk is based on the Serving on Groups curriculum. This is section 8, and that is available online as a curriculum. So thank you for attending this session, and we'll see you at another session.